Alright, I'm going to be discussing how I go about gluing Renegade Glue-on boots with acrylic adhesive. Most people use urethane. That's what's been taught to use urethane. I have discovered that, in my opinion, acrylic, especially living in the area that we live in, which is humid, and it can get hot and it can get wet here and there, that the acrylic adhesive seems to work a lot better. It's more flexible than the urethane is. It takes a little longer to cure, although they do have a fast set acrylic. I prefer to use the regular stuff. It takes about 5 minutes for it to set, and it gives you a little bit more time to work with things in case something goes backfires or goes awry or whatever. So I removed a boot that I put on her 2 weeks ago. I'm going to prep the foot here in a minute, but I have to kind of keep her especially balanced. She's got a little bit of an issue, and if I don't, then she goes lame at rides. So I'm going to prep the foot. I'm going to prep the boot. Usually when I prep the boot, I sand it down with a 40 to 60 grit sandpaper on the inside. It comes this way from the factory, from Renegade. The other thing I like to do also is take my box knife and score it in diagonal angles like this. Don't cut through the cuff here. Just kind of score it kind of at an angle and go at angle cuts like this, one direction, and then turn it around and go the other direction, again at a diagonal angle. This kind of gives it something to grip on, and you can do this if you're using urethane. I have just found that this works pretty well for what we're using here. I then like to spray it off with some denatured alcohol. I don't have much left, but I'm only doing 1 foot today, so hopefully this will work. There we go. Just spray it off to kind of help remove some oils out of the boot, and just set that aside on a dry surface. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and prep the foot. I've already trimmed her and got her balanced up and everything. So the way I usually go about prepping feet, let's see, sweetie, good girl. I'll put them up on a stand for the fronts, and I'll do this on the back as well. Again, I use a 60 to 40 grit sandpaper. In this case, I've got an inflatable. It's used for wood, but you can get these online. This makes things a little quicker. And I'll sand her foot. About a little ways below the coronary band. You don't want to get all the way up to the coronary band. And after that, I'll take my rasp and I'll take this end and I'll just score the end again like you did in the boot when you did the knife. Not real deep, just at an angle, diagonal angle. And then again the other direction. Again, this kind of gives it a grip to grip on here. And just don't go real deep into the hook wall. Before I get ready to glue on there, I'm going to spray it down with alcohol. But here, since it is humid and I need to take moisture out of the foot, I'm going to use my torch here and heat it up a little bit. Just move it kind of fast. Now you can use a heat gun for this as well, but you don't want to keep it on the same spot the whole time. You want to move it around pretty quick because it can heat the foot up pretty quick. You just want to kind of get the moisture out of here. Now, with acrylics, I have found they're a lot more forgiving on prep work and humidity than the urethanes are. So, even though this is kind of a necessity, it can be bypassed a little bit. So I'm gonna get most horses wouldn't tolerate that, I think, but she's pretty good about it. Take your denatured alcohol again and just spray the foot down. and let that dry. It'll evaporate if you're in a drier area. Here in the humid area, if it's warm, it may evaporate a little bit, but we want to try and keep the horse as still as possible. Now we're going to go back to the boot here. I kind of forgot something. I drilled a hole through the bottom of it. I do this on the fronts mostly, and this is going to be for hoof packing material that we're going to put in after the boot has been applied and cured. So the other thing I like to go do as well, in case the boot's a little bit too big for the foot or whatever, you can use this time to cut some notches in it. But I like to go ahead and fit the foot to the boot, or the boot to the foot. And she needs a little bit of this taken off. So I'll take my Sharpie and I'll kind of draw along her heel bulbs there. Let's see, baby, good girl. And while she's on this mat, it's okay to stand there. If you don't have a mat or something, you can use a spare boot to keep the foot dry after you've prepped everything. But what first thing I'm going to do is trim this section off right here. I don't like to put a lot of glue on the heel area. I have found that a lot of times that'll cause some failure after you've glued them on. So when I go to put adhesive on here, I'll keep it kind of away from there, but I like to cut these back a little bit for her. This is personal preference. You can do whatever works for you, but this is what works for me. So, and then I'll take my nippers and I'll trim this area off the back of the heel, because if I don't, sometimes she'll get to where she'll step on the back of them and they'll come off. So I kind of cut them at a little bit of an angle, following what I drew on there. And if you don't have nippers, you can use a sander or a grinder or whatever. And then I just take my rasp and smooth out what I cut. Like so. Then you can see how it's flush with her heels here, and that way it's less of a chance of her stepping on it. So, all right, now we can go ahead and glue these things on. I'm going to use Equilocks today. These are called the stubby tubes. They're 150 milliliters. You can usually get probably 1.5 horses, maybe 2 horses out of a tube, depending on how much adhesive you need to use. These fit in a standard caulking gun. Now I got kind of a heavy duty caulking gun here, but you can use a regular standard caulking gun. You do have to get an adapter for them. So the adapter fits in here like that. This slides into the caulking gun, and we are all set up here. One quick tip about these, particularly if you have a tube that has already been opened, like this one has, I would recommend taking a sharp, pointy object and getting in here and cleaning these things out, because they can get clogged up, and that can affect the way they mix inside. So you can see that's kind of hard stuff right there. It's dried up in the tube a little bit. But yeah, I would get in there and just kind of clean the stuff out. Otherwise it gets into the mixing tip and you can have problems with it mixing. There we go. See, like that. That gets into the tips. So, alright, that looks pretty good. So we will use a tip And these screw-on here, they're not like the Vet Tech tips or the other kind of tips. They screw on. What I forgot to say is it's a good idea to go ahead and purge the liquid. Make sure it's coming out okay, because you want both ends to mix here. And it doesn't look like that is coming out. Yes, it is now. So there we go. All right. That's why you purge stuff. Make sure everything's mixing right. So you put the tip back on again. And we run it through the tip there. And now I'll go ahead and put. I'm kind of liberal with the adhesive. I like to use quite a bit. It's not going to hurt anything if it gets a little bit on the bottom of the foot. The acrylic is a little bit more flexible than the urethane, but again, it also takes a little bit longer for it to cure. So what I do here is I'll sit here and play with it until it gets to like a peanut butter consistency, and kind of spread it around on the glue cuff a little bit, and you'll know when it'll start kind of being lumpy a little bit, but you'll want it to that peanut butter type consistency. It gives you a little time to work with it, which is good because it doesn't dry as quick as the urethane does. So once it gets to that consistency, then I'll go ahead and I'll put it on the foot. You got some packing wrap right here. I'll go ahead and grab it on the foot here, and I'll kind of twist it on there and make sure it gets seated well into the toe. And then I'll take my packing wrap and wrap it along here. And what this helps do is it helps keep the glue cuff close to the hoof wall, allowing this stuff to cure pretty well. Make sure it's straight. And I'll put that foot down, and I'll pick this foot up and let that cure for a little bit. Like I said, it takes about 5 minutes to cure.
Now you have the other foot up because you won't wait on that foot?
I won't wait on this foot, yes. Good point. Thank you, videographer. Yeah, you pick this foot up and put weight on it because it will spread this foot out and allow it to adhere a little bit better to the boot. So I've already glued these. These boots have been on for 2 weeks. They did a ride 2 weeks ago, 50-miler in some pretty rocky, hilly area. But like I said, I needed to take this boot off to check her foot because she really needs to be balanced on this foot more often. Otherwise, she'll have an issue at times. But once this is cured, I can put this foot down. I'm going to leave the wrap on, and we're going to go ahead and add some hoof packing pour-in pad that I use. The other acrylics you can use, I've used a product from Glue-U called Shoe Fit. I've used another product called Hoof Life. All the acrylics seem to be the same. They don't seem to have much of a difference to them. The Equilux product seems to be a lot easier to get a hold of. Most of your farrier stores and stuff online carry it fairly well. They do have a larger tube, a 420 milliliter tube, but you do have to purchase a particular gun to use that tube. If you're going to do it quite a bit, go ahead and do that. I have found that I can manipulate the little smaller tubes a lot better than I can the 420 milliliter. They're pretty big. Plus you can save the money and just buy a caulking gun, which is great because a lot of the products that I use, the Glue-U products, other stuff, take a caulking gun and the same type tips. So that feels like it's doing pretty good there, so I'll just let her put her foot back down again. And we'll let that sit there. Now for the hoof packing, we will use the same tips again. They screw-on type tips. It takes the same tips. This is a Glue-U product. Glue-U comes, the the silicone pour-in pads come in five different consistencies. They come in extra soft, soft, medium, and firm. This is a medium soft, so this would be like the soft, and they have an extra soft as well. They're different colors: pink, green, blue. I think I have another tube here. It's a different consistency. This is the soft. It's blue as opposed to the medium soft that's green. So, you know, we may just go ahead and try the soft, but I'd rather use the green because I've used it. We're fixing to do a 100-mile ride today, or tomorrow, so I don't want to change things up too much. So we'll just put this in the caulking gun like we did the acrylic.
So that green there is the packing from the other
Yes.
2 weeks ago?
Yes. Okay. And like I said, I do this mostly on the front feet. I don't usually pack the rear feet. That came out of the boot I just removed. So that's what we're going to fill in here. And again, you know, it's not a bad idea to clean out the area here where the glue comes out. This one's designed a little bit different, even though it does take the same tip. It's got a cap that goes on it here, and it's got a clear section and a green section there. So those are pretty clear. So we will take the tip and screw that on there like so. Oop, forgot my purge again. Always purge your material because you never know. All right, we got both of it coming out that time. So we'll put the tip back on there. And for her, on these feet, I usually do about 6 to 7 squirts in here. You'll see it coming out. 3, 4, 6, 7. You'll start seeing it coming out the back of the boot, like right there. I don't know if you can see that or not. And that's when you kind of want to stop, because when she puts her foot down, it's going to spread out inside there. I just put a piece of duct tape over the hole to keep things neat. It's going to squirt out the back here. Once you can see it coming out of the side right here, and in the back there. So when she puts weight back on that foot, it'll spread itself out. So this takes about a minute or two to cure, and then we'll wait another couple of minutes and we'll take the wrap off, and I'll show you what I do toward the end. So we have our pad on, and as you can see, it came through on the bottom of her foot. It's not going to hurt her any. It's just it's easier to once you see it coming out, you stop. Very little coming out, you stop. So you saw how little we had coming out initially. When she put her foot down, it came out a little bit more because of her weight bearing. So we're going to take this stuff off here. You can cut this off, or you can find the end where you rolled it up and just unroll it. That's what I usually do anyway. So we have our boot glued on here. Now I'm going to run a bead of glue around the edge and kind of feather it to the edge here. It's just something I like to do. It does not necessarily have to be done, but it's something I like to do. So we'll take this off again. Since we have cleaned it out already, we're just going to purge it a little bit more and put your tip on.
Is that a new tip?
Yes. Yes, you can't reuse the tips once they've been used. So we'll just get a little bit around the edge here. And then I just smooth it out on her hoof. Like I said, this necessarily doesn't have to be done, but I like to do it. It kind of seals the top off a little bit more and makes things look kind of neat. So, and that's pretty much it. The acrylic adhesive, like I said, is a little bit different than your thing. It's a little bit more flexible. I think it's a little bit more tolerant of prepping work, if you don't do your prepping work well. I've taken horses out of pastures and wet areas, cleaned their feet off of mud and whatnot, prepped it, dried them off with a torch and everything, glued these on, and they did a ride the next day, or they went trail riding or whatever they needed to do the next day with these on, and had zero failure. So with urethane, you would not be able to do anything like that with urethane. So that's my way of going about using acrylics, and I hope that helps. Thank you very much.